What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show, part of the All-City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and joining me on this Friday is Tim Legler. Legs, a blowout, another blowout, and a really close game last night, but plenty to talk about. How are you doing today?
Fired up, man. Fired up. Come on. You know how I feel by this time of year. I thought last night was exceptional for different reasons. I mean, I know that two of the games weren't necessarily very close. One game, complete blowout. One game, not a lot going on in the fourth quarter that meant anything. And then one really good game, compelling, dramatic, a rivalry game. It was pretty awesome. So I'm ready to roll, man.
An onion of layers in that 76ers game. So I'm kind of excited to kind of peel back all of those and talk about them, because there's a lot of layers to this game to get into. And then I think there's even layers to the Nuggets-Lakers game, because in my opinion, Legs, the Lakers quit, and I can't wait to find out if you're going to have the same opinion. But first, we are presented by DraftKings Pick 6. Stay tuned, because later in the show, you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We're going to start, though, with the good game last night, which was, of course, the Knicks and the 76ers. Joel Embiid goes for 50 points in this one. Dominant with his jump shot for most of the game. Dominant at the foul line and getting to the foul line most of the game. But also a little bit of some questionable decision-making from him, some questionable plays. This one gave you a little bit of everything, but it was a win for the 76ers to pull the series to 2-1. What's the biggest story to you in this one, Legs?
Well, it's definitely Embiid. I mean, it's not just, the 50 points, clearly that's a historic night in the history of the league. That's a historic night in the franchise history for him, everything, you name it. But it really came down to what was he going to look like and how was he going to be able to maintain it? And the paint production still isn't there. He's still primarily a jump shooter, and he's getting to the line. And so you just were like waiting to see, is he going to be getting worse and deteriorating as the game goes on, where he's more and more and more limited, even getting jump shots off, which is what we've seen in the first two games of the series, despite good numbers. Or is he going to be a guy that can see this thing through 48 minutes and still be very effective and look spry enough that you feel comfortable throwing in the ball? He's going to get a quality shot. It was the latter. And as a result, you know how I feel about the series. I mean, going in, before the injury, I said the Sixers go to the conference finals. I saw him in the Miami game, and I said, there's no way they can beat the Knicks if this is how he looks. And I kind of still felt that way coming out of New York, that he's just gimping around too much. He's not imposing the game defensively, and offensively, there are limitations there. Kind of broke through some of those. I felt like in game 3, he still wasn't down in the block or in the paint very much, but my goodness, the skill level that this guy has is incredible for somebody that big, that can dominate you at the foul line while at the same time beating you up with mid-range and deep jump shots. It's a very rare combination of player that can do both of those things in the same game. That's what he did. I'm still torn. I really believe this is an absolute 50-50 series going forward, because I think he is going to have fluctuation in how he looks from game to game, Adam. But last night, he was not affected to any great extent offensively. He was able to find that rhythm, and the shooting display he put on in the third quarter was incredible.
His shooting is it's so interesting, because he's dominant physically, has that incredible footwork, and he can live on the block and dominate you, but he hasn't been that guy so far in the playoffs. He's been a jump shooting version of himself. And this year, I think, he's relied on the jump shot more than ever this year, and he's been really good at it. He's been better than ever with his jump shot. In this game, it was almost purely jump shots, but he was on fire and so comfortable from there. I mean, 13 of 19, given the types of shots he took, is insane efficiency to get to that 50 points. And this game is a very uneven one for me for Joel Embiid. He obviously was dominant. I have to give him credit for this. The report comes out after the game that he is dealing with a very unique viral infection issue, Bell's palsy, that has paralyzed part of his face. People had noticed this, that he wasn't being able to close one eye and he's kind of looking strange. Well, it turns out he's actually dealing with a pretty freak, sort of ailment. And on top of that, you see the knee brace he's wearing that is just the size of a refrigerator. It's enormous. He clearly can't move the same way. And I believe, Legs, one of my biggest criticisms of Joel Embiid over the years has been that I think that he can sort of allow those things to deter him. And you get into a playoffs and you're not fully healthy, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, but is it affecting him as much as it seems to be? This is one where I think he has every excuse in the book. You have this crazy ailment. You got the knee injury. You're the lower seed. Something, that last game got away from you. It wasn't really your fault that you lost it. You have all these excuses. And this is the first. Last night, he was so resilient. He seemed resolved. And there was some tomfoolery in there we'll get to. But he played that game with a lot of heart and a lot of backbone. And to me, that's why I'm so impressed with him. He earned those 50 points, through, sort of through sheer will. And that is something that I think is going to be, look, it's a long mountain to climb. That's 1 out of 16 to get to the top. But I was impressed at least with him doing that, because I feel it was the most we've ever seen him in a playoff setting sort of say, no excuses. I just have to go through this.
He flat out refused to allow his team to be put into a situation where they're going to be down 3-0. He just was not going to be an option for him on this night. I agree, man. The Bell's palsy stuff came out after, and I'd heard of Bell's palsy. I didn't know anything about the symptoms or what it was. I had to Google it when I heard about it and look into it. And what he's dealing with is, how incredibly rare and unique with everything else that he's dealt with physically in his career this time of the year. Just add that to the list. It's really bizarre. Everybody knew something was going on with his eye. No one could figure out why his one eyelid, his right eyelid, they would show close-ups of him in game 2, and it was closing at a slower rate than the left eye. It was just a very weird, right? It was very weird. I was like, what's going on with this guy's face? And then after the game, his head's down. He's not talking to the cameras. Immediately the shades go on when when he's leaving the arena, and you're just kind of like, what is up? And then you finally get word on it. So he's dealing with that. And he's going to be dealing with that because it says maybe it could be a couple of weeks he's going to be dealing with that. So that's not going away. Clearly didn't affect his vision or his shooting last night. So he was able to play through it. He's got the knee. I want to tell you something about the knee. It kind of shocked me. So last night was the first time I actually got to look at the brace, because at one point, if you remember, he rolled up his leggings, right? So you could see the brace, because normally it's covered. And I didn't know exactly what it looked like. And last night you got to look at it. And here's what blew me away, Adam. That's the same exact style brace that I wore when I came back from my ACL injury, and then when I came back from multiple meniscal injuries after that, dealing with the same knee, and when I was playing. And why I think that's so fascinating, it's almost 30 years ago. And so what happens typically is you wear that brace for a while your meniscus is recovering from whatever. Either you chose surgery to repair, replace, or you're just letting it heal, which some guys do because it will regenerate. It's one or the other. You wear that brace, but you take that off when you're finally ready to go, when you're ready to go play again. So the fact that he was wearing that brace to that extent, a brace that heavy with that kind of structure on the outside and inside of his knee, it kind of told me that wow, man, that knee is not close to healed. The fact that he's wearing a brace like that. So I thought that was kind of fascinating to watch. He looked better throughout, wasn't into that exaggerated limp, changing ends of the floor. I thought that was a really good sign. And then the shooting, man, he had shots that he made last night, particularly in the third quarter, where when he caught the ball, there was a guy within 2 feet of his space. Now, they're smaller players. They're all smaller players than him. I think one of them was Brunson. But the fact that you're that comfortable to rise up from 25, 26 feet with a guy that close to your chest, where your landing area is not certain, and shoot it that comfortably and that certain, with that much certainty, was really mind-blowing, man. I couldn't believe the shooting display that he put on last night. I really couldn't. And it wasn't, here's the thing, it still wasn't going to be enough unless finally a couple of these role players helped. Oubre had a decent night, and then one of the biggest storylines of the game was Cameron Payne. Cameron Payne took Buddy Hield's minutes because Buddy Hield came in. He went 0 for 2. Nick Nurse took a look at him and said, based on the way you looked in New York, which was terrified, and now we're going to give you a shot in this game. He missed a wide open corner three, his first look. Could have changed his whole night, maybe. You never know. Might have changed the whole series for him. A guy like that needs one to go. He missed one. He missed another shot. 4 minutes. You're out. I got to find somewhere else to go. Let's go to Cameron Payne, who had barely played in the first 2 games and gave them a huge spark in the first half. So they got supplemental role player scoring. And then Embiid had a big night. Maxey was not as good as the first 2, but still very good overall for a star player. You add it all up, and the Sixers are back in the series.
You mentioned Buddy Hield. I think it's important here because, he was brought over to be an impact piece, and he has not been that in this playoffs. But the 76ers and the Knicks, to me, they're very similar. You've got Brunson, you got Maxey, and you've got Embiid. Those are your star players here. But you got a lot of guys that on any given night can win the game for you. And last night it was Cam Payne, 3 of 4 from 3. That really was. I know it's crazy to say that was the difference, but it was the difference because you didn't count on Cam Payne going 3 of 4 from 3 in this game. And they need, Batum in the play-in game. You got Kelly Oubre last night, had some very good moments. You have Tobias Harris. I know 76ers fans always laugh when I ever mention him as a guy that can be an X factor, but he is a guy that can impact the game positively or negatively. And you got Lowry. You need 2 or 3 of those guys to step up. You have to count on Maxey and Embiid to do it, and you need something from the other guys. Cam Payne provided that lift, but my question is that something they found? Cam Payne, okay, he's an option here. Does he provide the stuff you need, the extra ball handling, this, that? Maybe he can be a bigger impact piece. Or is that just last night it was him, but it's probably going to have to be someone else? That was his one game for the series.
Well, here's what I think. I think they're going with Cam Payne the rest of the way. Because here's the one thing about Cam Payne. Cam Payne has played in some bigger spots.
Yeah,
Buddy Hield's never been in the playoffs before. And not only in the playoffs, you're in the playoffs against arguably the most physical defensive team in the Eastern Conference, a team that's going to get up in you and pressure you, and they're going to stick to a game plan, and they're going to have incredible levels of effort defensively to chase you off the line and take everything away. He was having a nice role in Indiana, but when I watched the Pacers play, right, in the regular season, it's more free flowing. He's getting cleaner looks in transition. He also was putting the ball down and getting to the rim. He's a pretty good weak side cutter. He was getting that stuff because that's what the regular season looks like, and that's what the Pacers spacing looks like and the way they move the ball. The Sixers are different. It's going to run through Embiid and Maxey all the time. There's a lot of standing around waiting for shots, and if a team decides to chest you and not let you get open, it's going to be hard to do. He has no other answer. He handled the ball one time in game 2. He caught the ball on the left wing. He looked terrified to have it. He dribbled from the left wing all the way over to the right wing, right, with a guy like hounding him on his hip, and he couldn't wait to hand the ball off to somebody. It told me a lot. Like, he is not comfortable right now at all in this setting. And like I said, it's a shame because one shot can change things. He had a naked, wide open left corner look last night when he checked into the game. Wide open. And it was a good shot, man. Shot it straight. It was dead on. It just was a little long, kicked it right back toward him. And I'm going, man, if that goes in, it's amazing how different he's probably going to feel about himself right now. Maybe he strings together a few more threes at some point. But instead, that just compounded. Like, immediately you're back in your own head. And that's what Buddy Hield was. His first playoff experience against that team with this level of intensity in these two buildings. There's a rivalry type of feel between the Knicks and the Sixers. There's not many of them in the NBA, but it still does feel like that when the Knicks play the Sixers. And so I just think it's a little too much for him right now. Cameron Payne's been in bigger spots. He just he carries himself differently, man. He's got a swagger. Some people might call it an unreasonable level of confidence.
Yep.
Like
irrational confidence.
Yeah, exactly. That's who Cameron Payne is. He wasn't phased. First time he touched the ball, he shot a 3 and hit it. And it's like, wow, he didn't even play the first 2 games. You know what it is? He's sitting there too. And I know this, being a role player in the NBA, like, you're sitting there, he's sitting there watching Buddy Hield those first 2 games plus the first few minutes of this one. And he's like, he knows like he's in a bad spot. As a guy coming in for that player, you're really absolutely, you suddenly think, I got nothing to lose. And it does kind of give you, like, if that guy's hitting threes and the game's tight and then he comes out, you go in, you feel a bit more pressure. Like, man, I got to maintain this. Cameron Payne was feeling like, I got nothing to lose. This is my shot to get in this series, and I'm going to grab this, take advantage of it. He shot it freely. They're down 3 at half. Without Cameron Payne, they're probably down 8-10 at halftime. That's how important the timing of his shots were in the second quarter. And that's a different feeling in Philly. You come running out of the locker room to start the second half, you're down 10. to go down 3-0, I'm telling you, the pressure in that building would have been immense. He kept them right there within one possession, in large part to what he did in the second quarter. I think that's where you go going forward, because Nick Nurse looked at those two players last night and saw a completely different look in one guy's eyes than the other.
Cam Payne's a bit of a chihuahua, and that he's a small guy, but he is always ready to fight. Like the guy, and I don't mean physically fight, but I just mean he's a guy that doesn't need to be up to start talking trash or to bring that energy. And it's a double-edged sword, because he's a good player, and on nights like last night, he's an impact player, but I don't think you can count on him to give you 4 wins. You know, you can count on him to give you this one in the series that he gave you last night. And then you hope he can give you 3-4 other games where he's playing well, not being an anchor to you. But I don't think he's a guy that you're going to count on to shoot the ball like that. He's always going to bring that swagger and that intensity. And I think that is needed on this team. And you're right, to contrast it to Buddy Hield, they really do have opposite energies. And the 76ers clearly need what he is providing here. But you talked about bad blood, 76ers Knicks. That bad blood's about to get a lot worse, because there was also a lot of just some, especially from Joel Embiid, unnecessary contact in this game. And the one play, look, he had a screen where he kind of hit somebody. He had a couple plays, throwing fits, tough screens, what have you. But the play that really stands out, and they reviewed it and everything, he goes to the ground. He felt he was fouled. He didn't get the call. He goes to the ground, and it's Mitchell Robinson jumps up, and he grabs his leg midair and yanks it. Not just grabs it, but yanks it in a play that was Draymond Green-esque, in terms of that is a play that you are lucky didn't go worse, and quite frankly might have actually gone bad. So this one, everybody has seen the play. Everybody knows the one I'm talking about. That was one where I think if he was thrown out of the game, you would have been justified to be upset about it if you were a 76ers fan. And if he was not thrown out of the game, I think you're justifiably upset that he wasn't if you're a Knicks fan. So this is one to me that was almost 50-50, but I'm curious what your thoughts are about whether or not he should have been thrown out. He was assessed the flagrant 1. If he should have been thrown out, and 2, if you just felt like it was a real dirty play the way I felt it was.
Man, oh man, oh man. This was definitely leaning toward, the more I watched it, and I don't know how many times I watched it this morning, I just kept watching it and looking at it. And so there's a couple elements to it, Adam. First is he actually sort of clamped down on his leg with his leg before he jumped. Right. He was trying to grip his leg so he couldn't jump with his own leg. He kind of wrapped it. And then when Mitchell Robinson went to jump, he reached up, obviously grabbed him, kind of held on and yanked him back down to the ground. And then he even held on a little bit as he was falling. He still had a grip on his leg. And live, and then the replay or two you got last night, I wasn't as convinced as I am watching it this morning as many times as I did. That would have been absolute justification for an ejection. I'm pretty clear on it, man. That's a dangerous play. That's a dangerous play. Now, some people are also making a big deal about the Hartenstein play on the other end. I didn't think that was necessarily Joel's fault when Hartenstein took the knee to the groin. Hartenstein got in his way intentionally and leaned over all the way, because if he didn't do that, Embiid's going to run right past him with a little bit of a brush maybe from his forearm. He got so far in front of him, Embiid had nowhere to go, and his knee came up into that area of his body. I didn't see much there. This one, a little different. I think this was an absolute intentional act on the part of Joel. Anytime you start grabbing hold of a player's body, and I don't care if that's plays we've seen in the past where a guy jumps, like Draymond had to play in the playoffs a couple years ago against Memphis. A guy jumps, and now you hit him in the chest, and they're not in control of their body because they're not touching the ground. So your body is completely at the mercy of the defender. That it's not as dangerous as that, but it's still a dangerous play because a guy's attempting to get off the ground and you're preventing it from happening by grabbing his leg. Would have absolutely warranted an ejection. Didn't happen. Here's the thing. Here's how I look at this. The Knicks, I don't think should be whining about it from this standpoint. They prepared to play the game against Joel Embiid being out there for the whole game. That's what they prepared for. And he ended up being that way, right? And you weren't able to deal with him. And then the Sixers won the game. You're going to have to deal with Joel Embiid going forward in this game. I always have more of a reason to talk about these things if a guy's been ejected. And now you're talking about the impact on that team and how they can't overcome that. he stayed in the game. You weren't expecting him to get ejected when the game started. So let's go play. These two teams have to play now. I understand if you're a Knicks fan, you just want to win this series. Oh man, he shouldn't even be out there, and he ended up with a 50-point game. I get it, and I think it would have been understandable. I wouldn't be on here defending Joel Embiid if he got ejected, saying, oh, there's no way that should have happened. That's probably where the two fan bases are polarized on this. I'm just looking at it unbiased. I think it warranted an ejection. It didn't happen. Okay. So now you've got to go figure out how to deal with this guy the rest of the night. And they didn't do a very good job of doing that, obviously. And there's going to have to be a serious adjustment to him now going forward and how you're defending him.
For me, the interesting angle on it is, first of all, the playoffs have been incredibly physical. And I think Embiid, not with this specific play, but with the general game, realized that there was a level of physicality that was going to be allowed, that was elevated and rightfully sort of turned things up. But that play, to me, I just gave Embiid credit, and I think he really deserves it for being, for having resolve and playing that game with no excuses. I've got this injury. I've got this face thing. Like, I've all this stuff going on, but he played hard and he played like he was out there to win. But you balance that with that play was frustration. That play was him losing his control of himself. That wasn't something he rationally was like, well, let me try to do this or that. He lost himself for a moment. And so I think Embiid, and this is the thing about growing as a player in the playoffs, I think Embiid right now is being pulled in both directions, and it's going to be fascinating because he's an all-time great player and great scorer, but it's going to be interesting if he can sort of grow from this experience. And to me, last night was such a perfect example of some of the best wins in that department and some of the biggest losses, him losing his cool. And it just shows that there is this middle sort of internal battle for him, and I'm curious to see, because it's not going to get easier. You could tell with how unhealthy he is, the next games are not going to be lighter. His body's not going to be like, more rested. He's going to get more and more tested in those departments. So I'm curious to watch it. He puts the 50 piece up in this one, stays in the game. We'll see what happens now in game 4. If we go to the other side, Jalen Brunson shot the ball better in this game. What was it about the Knicks, though, that had them fall behind in this one?
All right. I'm watching the Knicks through the first 3 games, and, I'm not going to sit there and just keep reiterating how we both feel about the year that Brunson had and how important he is to their offense, and down Julius Randle. They don't have a lot of offense generators necessarily. Having said that, I still feel like there's a dominance of the ball and the shot volume coming from the point guard spot that I think it's like going to be tough, man. He averaged 21 shots a game in the regular season. He's averaging almost 30 shots in this series. And that's just in field goal attempts. That's not even counting the number of times he's trying to shoot when he gets fouled. It's over 30 a night, like attempted scoring opportunities for himself. And there's times that it's like several trips in a row. Like he's just coming down and going. And it's like, I get it. Like you're critical to the team. He had good numbers last night. 27 shots to get 39 points is a pretty good night. 10 for 12 from the line. He still had 13 assists. Something about it when I was watching the game, these last couple of games, for some reason, it didn't hit me to this extent in the regular season watching the Knicks. Like, damn, man, Brunson's getting them up. Like, it's just like one trip after another, you feel like, and I feel like the Sixers are in a place now, they feel like, go ahead, man, get your number. If it's going to be 25 shots, 27, 28, 30, 32, 35, whatever the shot number is, we've got to do a better job on these other guys. Dante DiVincenzo's got to be a guy that can't have these splashes of offense where he gets hot and scores 10 points in a short period of time and has 18, 20 or more for the game. We've got to do a good job controlling that. I think McBride is a guy that we got to make sure he doesn't go off. He can't have like a 10-point quarter. We can't allow that. We can't survive that. Anunoby, there's only so much you can do because he's a bigger physical guy. He'll take the ball to the rim. He'll get to the hole. You're not going to completely shut his water off. But guys like Bogdanovich, DiVincenzo, McBride, those guys, I think you can make a conscientious effort if you're the Philadelphia 76ers to control those guys a little bit more. And if that means Brunson is going for 35 to 40, so be it. I think that might be your best chance to beat the Knicks. And it felt like that's kind of what they were thinking last night as well. DiVincenzo got 7 shots in that game. DiVincenzo, go look at his game logs over the last 2 months of the season. 7 shots. He's doing that in a quarter some nights. 7 shots in a game. It's a conscious effort. And part of it's the Sixers, part of it's Brunson. And kind of like he's got blinders on a little bit and kind of what he's looking for. And I think if there was a better balance there with some of these other guys on a given night, the Knicks have a really good chance to win the series. But I think if I'm the Sixers, I'm rolling my dice with Jalen Brunson putting up numbers. And if he does it inefficiently, like he did the first 2 games, you got a great chance. Look at it. They should have won game 2. We all know that. So you got a great chance, I think, to beat the Knicks if that's going to be how they operate offensively, where he takes a lot of shots to get a lot of points, but nobody else has these like big quarters against you or big halves against you. It worked pretty good last night. Josh Hart continues to hurt them. He was a 31% 3-point shooter, Adam, on the season. He's torching the Sixers. He might continue. I don't know, because he's so hot right now and he's so confident probably. If I'm the Sixers, I'm rolling the dice with Josh Hart shooting threes. I am.
Yeah.
It's DiVincenzo, Bogdanovich, and McBride. Those 3 guys are more likely to make open threes or semi-contested threes than Josh Hart. And so I'm living with it. Hart, you're going to get some. You can't take away everything. Anunoby, Hart, and then mostly Brunson. If I'm the Sixers, go ahead, man. Do you want to take 28 shots to get to 30? Be my guest. We have a good chance because we're going to be more efficient with Embiid the number of times he gets to the line and what he's going to shoot from the field.
Yeah, the Jalen Brunson thing, to me, it's almost not even the shots, even though obviously the shot attempts are a lot, 27, 11 more than anybody else on the team, who, by the way, number 2 is Josh Hart. But it's the time of possession. 9.9 in the playoffs so far through 3 games. He's had the ball 9.9 minutes. That's almost a full minute more than the second highest player, which is Luka Doncic. And we know how much he has the ball in his hands. Think about how much Luka has the ball in his hands. And then add another minute of possession, another 10% of possession to Jalen Brunson. And by the way, he's doing it in 2.5 fewer minutes. So you're right that they are an anomaly in how often the ball is in his hands. Now, the flip side of that is they don't turn the ball over. And that is one of the secret benefits of having one guy control the ball, is if there's not a lot of passes, you're probably not going to lose the ball too often. But I agree with you that that's a delicate balance. They're not a well-rounded team offensively where they have a bunch of creators, but I do think they can go to some of the guys you talked about to give them a little bit more leeway. And I even think Bogdanovich I know he's off the bench, only playing about 15 minutes a game, but he was instrumental in the game 1 win because he got hot and started to get going. So I do think there's moments for Jalen Brunson to pick his spots, be ball dominant, but also maybe to get off ball, rest up, maybe become more effective, but also just to allow other guys to get a rhythm. So I like that note a lot.
And real quick, last point on this. People think about historical context. He's 6'2". So look at the teams historically with your primary ball handler and leading scorer, 6'2" and under. And look, I'm not saying it's never happened, and some of these guys on these teams haven't won series. It's really, really, really rare to have your number 1 shot volume guy, who's your primary ball handler, also be 6'2" and under and be able to win round after round after round. Like, just think about it going forward. It's historically very, very rare. And that's kind of what they're operating with now. And so if I'm the Sixers sitting here, I'm down 2-1 and Embiid is not 100%. Honestly, all in all, based on how the end of game 2 played out, I'm feeling pretty good right now because I think you're more confident that like what you've seen out of Embiid for 3 games is going to continue. Like they can't guard him. He's too big. He shoots it too well. And it looks like Maxi's going to average around 30 points a game in this series. That's what his numbers are going to be. You're getting more than enough from the second guy. So on a given night, can we just have a couple of you make some shots? Last night, it was Oubre and Payne. They got almost none of it up in New York, and they still had a game in their hands to win inside of 30 seconds. I think they feel pretty good right now about how they match up with this team and how their guys are going to be able to operate versus the Knicks guys and what's going to be more consistent. That's just how I feel the confidence level is right now for the Sixers. I think they feel okay. Obviously, you've got to win game 4. Can't go down 3-1. This is probably going to end up in a 7-game series and what takes place on a Sunday afternoon in Madison Square Garden. That's what's going to, who shows up. And a lot of that's going to be role players showing up. Who's going to do it? I think that might be where we're headed, Adam, but I think Nick Nurse feels pretty good right now where they're at.
Mitchell Robinson obviously reports that he left the arena in a boot. If he was unable to go, we'll just say for the remainder of this series, if something happened where he was significantly limited or out for the series, how much would that change things, in your opinion?
That's a big, big problem for the Knicks. I mean, it is, because here's why. Joel Embiid is going to get Hartenstein in foul trouble.
Yeah.
And part of it's Hartenstein is a little bit too aggressive with trying to chest him up like 20 feet from the basket. And I know the guy's a great shooter, but you're 7 feet tall. You're not a 6'8" guy. Like, you're worried about him shooting over the top if he gets any space at all. I think Hartenstein, he comes up and he's all active with his arms, and then he closes the ground. Next thing you know, he's chest to chest, and Embiid swings his arm through. Boom, there's a whistle. Embiid's going to pick up 2 or 3 of those a game. And if you don't have another legitimate size, a body to throw at him, that's a real big problem. I mean, Precious Achiuwa was great for the Knicks from the time they acquired him. He hasn't really been playing. That's where they had to go last night between the foul trouble and the injury. That's where you end up going. That's a massive problem for the Knicks if that ended up being extended minutes. Joel Embiid's going to have a field day on that. So down one legitimate, good defensive big, a legitimate big, that'd be a real problem for the Knicks.
To add even more chaos to the mix, the next time they play, matinee game, 1 o'clock on Sunday. So they get 2.5 days off. But I always feel like matinee games, those weekend matinees, man, it just throws a whole new wrinkle into the equation. So we'll see what happens with that one on Game 4. Let's take a break. On the other side, I want to talk about the Denver Nuggets' dominant Game 3 performance. Or was it the LA Lakers that quit in this one, Legs? Think about that. I want to ask you about it on the other side. And then we'll hit on Cavs Magic as well before previewing the weekend slate. But first, let me tell you guys about AG1. Replace your coffee, as I have done with AG1, a nice cold drink. It comes with a little scoop. You put it in your water, you mix it with water, or you shake it up. They give you a little bottle it comes with. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, but it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's just that one scoop mixed in water once a day, every single day. AG1 is the supplement I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as our new partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packets with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/allnba. That's drinkag1.com/ALLNBA. Check it out. Also want to tell you about the Game Time app. If you guys are looking to make plans for this weekend, if you're a procrastinator, as I can tend to be, Friday, you're looking at what are we going to do Friday night, maybe Saturday. There's a festival concert in your area. Hop on the Game Time app. Find out what the latest ticket deals and prices are. They have flash deals, zone deals, last-minute tickets. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And if you're wanting to catch, I don't know, a Lakers game this weekend at Crypto.com Arena, you might just find that ticket prices are dropping. I suspect there are a lot of Lakers fans that are probably selling off their tickets this weekend, saying, we paid a lot of money for those tickets, but I don't really want to go spend my Saturday watching that. So they hop on and they sell them for really cheap. Check it out right now. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code ALLNBA for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Back here, segment 2. I had to throw a little trash talk into my Game Time read, Legs. I guess I was feeling it a little bit.
No, I could tell. It's just playoff time. That's why it's playoff time.
I'm just saying, if Nuggets fans are in LA, you might be able to find cheap tickets from a Lakers fan that does not want to watch their team quit as they did in Game 3. At least that's my opinion. The Lakers come out, build a lead in the first quarter, 10-point lead. But as this series, and really the last 11 games, have followed a very similar script, the Lakers throw a punch early on, run out of gas. Denver just absorbs that punch before slowly, methodically, and decisively taking over the game. They did that in this one. A 9-2 run to start the second half is really what punched back with the Lakers, and they just didn't seem to have a lot of fight after that, Legs. What stood out to you about this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It was a look on the Lakers eventually. It was resignation. I know that's a fine line between quitting. I've seen teams quit, and I've used the word quit. It's definitely a poisonous word to use for an athlete. It's terrible. There's what else can you say that's worse than quit if you talk about a professional athlete, right? It's just the word that you don't ever want to hear. And I've used that word rarely in the course of 23 years of doing this and analyzing the game, because I was an athlete. I know that sometimes people interpreted it and it's not the case. As a player, I knew that. So I'm very reluctant to use that word. I know what guys put into this and how much it means to them. So I think it's a difference between that and coming to a realization and a resignation of your fate. That is what I felt the Lakers experienced last night. because, and LeBron said it after, I think he summed it up the best. There are no weaknesses on this team. That is what just erodes your competitive soul over the course of, now forget this series, how many games in a row, but particularly in this series, right? You had one chance to get back in it. It was going to be this game. Coming back from the gut punch, you couldn't have done anything more than you did in game 2, and you didn't win the game. So that already emotionally was like, you're carrying that with you. But at least now you're thinking, well, okay, well, if we get in that position again, we can get up on these guys. We're at home this time. It'll be different. We can see it through. And then here we go. Starting in sort of toward the end of the second quarter, all the way into the third, carving them up. The precision, their front line was 29 for 47 from the field in a playoff game. I mean, come on, man. That demoralizes you. So if people want to use the word quit, I guess I don't have a big problem with it. That wasn't to me as blatant a quit as it was a resignation to the fact that we cannot deal with this team. We don't know what to do with this team, and it demoralized them to that extent. And then fourth quarter was pretty much, even though it's weird because it's like an 8, 9, 10-point game. A playoff game.
It wasn't a blowout. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a 10-point game in a playoff game. You're thinking to yourself, but I'm telling you, they couldn't muster up the belief. That's the word, really, Adam. They couldn't.
Yeah, you're right.
They literally couldn't conjure the belief to think that they were still in it. That's the problem. And it's the Nuggets do that to you, man. The Nuggets do it to you. And they are operating at such a level right now. And the thing is, Jamal Murray still hasn't really put together a great shooting game. And they're still up 3-0 on this team. They're so impressive, man. There's no other word for it other than impressive.
The Nuggets, I've always used this metaphor with them that they're kind of like a boa constrictor, and that they just sort of wait for you. They kind of squeeze you little by little. They're not trying to do it all in once. They're just little by little. And I almost feel, to your point, that was the sensation you got from the Lakers was, if we punch harder, we get hit harder. And if we don't punch as hard, either way, no matter how much effort we put into this, they're just going to have a little bit more of an answer for us. And so I guess I agree with you that it's more that the Nuggets stole their belief than that necessarily that they quit. But that's what this Denver team does. And I have to imagine they're an incredibly frustrating team to go up against because, to your point, Jokic in this game, I mean, I know he's working hard, 24 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists. He was not aggressive in this game. No. And that's the part, and as you mentioned, Murray hasn't shot the ball well in the series as a whole, but Jokic last night, I kept thinking he's saving it for the end. He's saving it for the end. Well, it was never needed. And I kind of felt like he knew that. He's just in control, and he's waiting there. If they need me to step in, I'll step in. But if not, I'll kind of just manage 24, 15, and 9. And that's why I think, to your point, I just think the Lakers sense that there is a little quit to him, in my opinion. But I think they kind of sense this, well, if we plug this hole over here, Yoke's just going to go off. And if we plug this hole over here, Murray's going to go off. And they almost don't know. It's hard to give effort when you don't even know which direction to give effort towards.
All right, here, I'm going to explain then maybe a little more clearly the difference between quitting and what I watched last night. I think quitting is when I identify quitting as it doesn't matter enough to you to win. You don't want to win bad enough. I don't think that's the case about the Lakers. I don't believe that. I think the Lakers want to win. They're playing a team that they can't freaking beat, and they don't have an answer for. And they're just too damn good. By the way, they're probably too damn good for the entire league. And that's the resignation part that sets in. See, quitting to me is when I look at like you're kind of in the fight. You can fight if you want to and go toe to toe, and you just don't have the fire in your belly to want it bad enough. That's quitting. I don't think that's what the Lakers were last night, man. They're playing against a superior team for which there aren't enough answers. Period. And I don't think there's a ton of faith in what they're hearing in the huddles to help them. You know, players want when they come to the sideline, they want answers. They want solutions. They don't want pep talk. They want solutions. What do we do? And sometimes there aren't any because you don't have the personnel to deal with it. You don't have enough, right? And I'm not, by the way, I'm not slamming Darvin Ham. I think, though, there's some lack of belief maybe on their roster in that part of it. They're not getting that part of it. So that's just like one more thing where you feel like, man, you know, we're even up against it there too because Malone is you know, the way he's regarded and revered, he's already been a champion. So I think that's there too for this team. Like maybe you can get a little bit more belief from those guys. And I don't necessarily think that they're looking there and they believe they're going to get it there. There's a resignation that they're playing a better team. I don't think that they didn't want to win the series or they didn't want to win last night. I think they look at the way they played in the early part of that game. They came out hard. They were ready. So I think quitting to me is when you just don't have enough competitiveness inside of you to want it bad enough. I don't think that's the case with the Lakers. I just think that they eventually you succumb to the fact that they're better than us. They're better than us. Yeah. That's not necessarily to me the same thing as quitting.
What about Aaron Gordon's night last night? 29 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. He's oftentimes the unsung hero of the Denver Nuggets because he does a lot of the dirty work. He plays the dunker spot. He guards good players. Last night, he got to step into the star role and had a career high, or at least a playoff career high, 29 points to go with those 15 rebounds. What can you say about what you see from him with this Nuggets team and what you saw last night?
Did that game not remind you a lot of what happened last year in the NBA Finals, right? Or in the playoffs in general, like, because that's exactly right. Like, there's a lot of nights in the regular season you watch the Nuggets, and Aaron Gordon doesn't have to take on a more aggressive offensive role, and chooses not to. Some nights he's just not there for him. Whatever. He doesn't think it that way, and then when he wants to, or the opportunities present themselves, he reminds you, the guy was a pretty damn good scorer in Orlando before he came to Denver. Like, he could do both, and he still has it in him. And it seems like whenever he has those nights where he gets high shot volume, he's incredibly efficient. He was absolutely different, in a different mindset in terms of looking for his offense to take advantage of the opportunities that were presented last night. And I think, to be honest with you, that component of their team, Adam, is what causes the resignation of their opponents. Because it's already like, okay, Jokic, we all know what a load that is. We're dealing with that. Jamal Murray, how hard that is to stop. The two of them playing together. And then Michael Porter Jr., like, he's arrived on that level now. You're expecting that out of him. And, that stroke, you got to always be conscious of how to get to him and not give him space. Oh, now this dude's going to do this? Come on, man. Like, he's guarding guys, he's rebounding, he's physical, but now he's going to go 12 for 18 from the field too? Like, okay, what are we supposed to do? It's like Aaron Gordon is the tipping point. When he plays with a certain level of awareness and aggressiveness offensively as a scorer, that's the tipping point for the rest of the league to me. And that's what I saw last night in him. They're damn near unbeatable, man, when Aaron Gordon is that included in their offense.
Can I play devil's advocate for a moment here? The Nuggets are up 3-0. I don't feel like they've played particularly well on offense just yet. And a lot of that is I don't think Jamal Murray has played particularly well. He had a phenomenal fourth quarter and obviously a huge close to that game, which was, that alone was worth it. But part of me, I hear everybody today, every talking head is the Nuggets are unstoppable. Is this one of the greatest teams we've ever seen? This or this. And look, they've won 13 of their last 14 playoff games. They're looking pretty good. So I understand why people believe that. But I actually don't think that they have reached anywhere near their potential. And while that's encouraging, if you're an optimist and say, hey, they can be there, there's another part of me that goes, I'd like to see Denver put together a 48-minute offensive game, and they haven't done that in this series yet. So is there any concern to you, or are you on the side that says this team's a juggernaut and an all-time great?
No, they're a juggernaut, all-time great in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind. They are. I just know what great connectivity looks like on a basketball court, and that's the bottom line. And it's one thing if guys are all connected, that's great. If you don't have a one particular player that is a solution for everything they're going to see, then maybe all that connectivity is only going to get you so far. Now, those are just teams that we admire, but they can't ultimately really get to the finish line. Well, you have this all-time great individual player in addition to all-time great connectivity. They're an all-time great team, and they're going to be in the mix, man, for a long time. And let's not get ahead of ourselves. They've won one. Repeating is hard. Three-peats are almost historic by historical standards, next to impossible. There hasn't been a whole lot of those, man. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. But what I'm watching right now is just max level basketball, great basketball. Now, you're right. They haven't had a game, and maybe because of the nature of this series, they haven't really needed it yet.
Could be.
Maybe you want to see them get 128 and Murray goes 11 for 17, 2 on top of it. And then the rest of the league just quits. I don't know if that's what you're trying to do, Adam. Yeah. Okay. Let's get that. Okay. Because seriously, like it's to me, most of what I'm watching is really, really good. I hear what you're saying. There's still like a little bit more there. And that's the challenge of Mike Malone and their team to constantly try to find that and push themselves to get that. It's almost like their opponent is themselves at this point. And I thought Jokic's comments after the game last night were telling, and they kind of said that winning is a lifestyle. It's one of the greatest things I've ever heard. I'm getting a T-shirt tomorrow made with that on there because I don't know if he stole that from somebody. Did somebody else ever say that? Do you know?
Jokic has these gems, man. He's a bit of a poet. People don't realize it, but he pulls these out from time to time.
I absolutely heard that. I didn't hear the presser last night after the game, man. It was late. I went to bed. I had to get up early, and I turned it on this morning. I caught post-game sound, and I saw him say, winning is like a lifestyle for us. I'm like, that's T-shirt. That's on the beach this summer in South Jersey, man. Winning is a lifestyle. So, and that sums up where they are mentally, right? And so I agree. There's probably a little bit more there offensively you'd like to see, but I don't know, man. What I'm watching right now is beautiful basketball.
To your point, it was needed exactly one time in this playoffs, the fourth quarter of game 2, and they channeled it. They channeled it as well as anybody possibly could channel it. Let's take another quick break. On the other side, let's run through the weekend slate and talk about what is coming up around the association this weekend. But first, I'll tell you about the presenting sponsor of the show, DraftKings Pick 6. Did you ever play the over-under game with your friends? You think you can eat a slice of pizza in under 30 seconds, or I'll take you over a minute to down a 2-liter. I've never done that one. That one sounds a little crazy. If you have, then you're going to love Pick 6, the new fantasy game from DraftKings, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here's how you play during the NBA playoffs. Pick between 2 and 6 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat: rebounds, points, assists, and more. Track your picks and play against others for a shot to win huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code ALLNBA for a shot at huge cash prizes. That's code ALLNBA, ALLNBA, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 18 and over in most eligible states. Age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Pick 6 not available in all states, including but not limited to Connecticut and New York. For up-to-date list of states, visit dkng.co/pick6states. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Back here, final segment of the All-NBA show. We appreciate everybody hanging with us all week. Don't forget to hit that like button for us if you're new to the show. You'll enjoy what you're watching. Subscribe. You won't regret it. 4 times a week, we're going live, talking and interacting with you on these NBA playoffs. Real quickly, Legs, the Orlando Magic had the 3rd biggest margin of victory in NBA playoff history last night. They were down 0-2, and yet they bounced back in a major way. The defense has been there all series, this time even more so, hold them to 83 points. But 121 points I did not see coming. I said all along Jalen Suggs is the key to this series. He goes 9 of 11. He couldn't make anything on the road. He comes home and he goes 9 of 11. Do you have any overarching thoughts on this series and where it stands?
I mean, are we going to get a close game? I guess is what I'm waiting for. Normally you get a 4-5 series and there's, one team won 48 games, one team won 47. 3 games into a series, we've really had not a single meaningful fourth quarter possession in these games. So I guess we're due, right? So I think game 4, we finally get it. You and I talked before the game yesterday, and I said, look, they had too good of a year. And really we gained so much respect for the Magic. Got out of the gate quick and then never went away, man. All year long, they stayed there, like right in that top 3, top 4 area in the East. They get into this 4-5 with Cleveland. So they get smoked the first 2 games. They don't really, have much of a chance to win those games. I'm thinking, you know what? There's no way they're going out like this. Like, they're going to go home and they're going to play well. And I didn't think they'd win by 30 plus, but I thought they'd play well. And I said to you yesterday on the air, I said, Paolo Banchero was going to have a big night. And Banchero was sensational. They're in the series now. And let's see if now that both teams have come out, they've kind of, taken really big shots from the other one. I think game 4, we finally get one of those games that comes down to the wire. And now we're going to see the difference in closing ability between the 2 teams.
You go back to Jonathan Isaac off the bench, you play Wendell Carter there, and the rebound battle goes in favor of Orlando. I don't think that's a small thing. It'll be something to watch to see if Cleveland now can counter that. That's the lineup that, they've had injuries all year, but that was one of the lineups that you kind of counted on for the Orlando Magic all year. So now that Isaac goes back to that bench role, it might actually, even though I love Jonathan Isaac, it actually might suit this team to play the way they're most familiar and to control the boards a little bit more. So that'll be an interesting. That sets the stage, honestly, for what should be a very good game 4. As we do every Friday, we talk about who won the week, presented by DraftKings here. Who won the week? Let's take a look real quick at a couple of the nominees' legs. Jamal Murray had a game winner. We just talked about, I don't think Jamal Murray's been that good. But how many players have a game winner, a true buzzer beater in a playoff setting, and not just a game winner, but coming back the way that he did? He deserves a nomination. I also have Nikola Jokic on here as just a nominee. He is averaging 28 points per game while shooting 70% true shooting to go with 16 rebounds, 9 assists. The numbers are absolutely absurd. The efficiency is absurd. You've got Joel Embiid, a 50-point game. He's leading all players in points per game in the playoffs at 38 a game. And then lastly, I have the Miami Heat as a team. Why? We don't have a lot of upsets yet, Legs. Home teams have been winning. Upper seeds have been winning, with one exception. The Miami Heat, short of Jimmy Butler, are the one team that have gone in and shocked the world. So those are your nominees, Murray, Jokic, Embiid, and the Heat. Do you have another nominee, or do you want to pick from that group?
I got 2 other nominees, but because I think they deserve mention, but I am gonna pick from your group. I think 2 other people that deserve mention. Pascal Siakam, I think, should get a shout out.
Yeah, you're good.
For the first two games he's had against Milwaukee, he's been absolutely sensational. And then I think Anthony Edwards deserves some talk, because game 1 did it as an elite scorer and just was electrifying. Game 2, it wasn't his night, and he impressed me with his leadership. And they go up 2-0. But I'm ultimately going to go with the Heat, and I'll go with the Heat / Tyler Hero if I'm going to single somebody out. Tyler Hero was probably the best player in that game. And he played like an all-star caliber starting point guard, and he's not a point guard. He's a combo guard, man. And he ran the show, 14 assists, and it wasn't just like he was getting assists. And sometimes you get assists and you're not that blown away because guys make great shots. Like, he was absolutely orchestrating their offense. He was under a lot of pressure. They put a lot of different – think about the number of on-the-ball defenders that they have. Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown guarded him at times. And he wasn't fazed, man. He used his creativity with the ball to control it, to get himself out of tight spots, get it back to the middle of the floor, get downhill, make plays for people. He also contributed with 6 made threes. I thought Hero was exceptional in that game, but bigger picture, I'm going with the Heat because of just the belief they had to have. Losing Butler, getting smoked in game 1, going into game 2, and to have that kind of performance, man, speaks a lot about Spo, a lot about that group. And then, like I said, Tyler Hero really stood out.
Emma, the chat's right on this one. Pascal deserves nominee for this one. Let's combine Jokic and Murray into just Denver Nuggets when we put this out on social, and then put Pascal Siakam on there. The chat's right. He deserves to be on there with his week, 36.5 points. Got a road win as well. So we talked about upsets. They get one as well to go with 12 rebounds, 4 assists. He's been incredible. Let's look at the weekend, though, Legs, because, my God, do things get good from here on out. So looking at the schedule tonight, Milwaukee at Indiana. It goes back to Indiana. We just had Tyrese Halliburton say, hey, we've had regular season crowds that were better than what we saw in the playoffs here. So a little trash talk going on. This game obviously is going to be very pivotal in who gains momentum for it. What are you looking for here?
My goodness, man. This is the single, I think, biggest night we've had so far. So we started Saturday, right? Saturday, Sunday, and now a whole week. This is the most significant night with these 3 games, and particularly the first 2. Pacers get the split. Now they go home. And the whole thing is like, when is Giannis going to make an appearance? When's he going to make an appearance? What's he look like? Because they have no answer for Siakam from a personnel standpoint. I don't think it's going to change. Halliburton hasn't really done much offensively as a scorer. I think that changes tonight. I think he goes off at home. He's 20 plus, by the way. Emma loves this. I think the line is the prop bet 16.5 on Tyrese Halliburton tonight. I'm loving the over. I think he's going to hit 5-6 threes tonight. He's going to smoke that number. Now, if you want to just double your money, just double your money. That's what
I might have to. I honestly might have to.
I think that's a sucker number. I'm taking that number.
Okay.
And then Clippers, Mavericks, Adam, man. I think the winner of this game could win the series. And
wow.
I picked Dallas. I don't think you can give up home court again that fast. Like, you can't give that right back. Same thing I'll say about the Heat. You took that one. If you give it right back in game 3 to Boston, then Boston's going to go on. We know they're going to win the series. same thing with Dallas, man. You got it. This is a critical game because Kawhi is going to get better and better as this series goes. You need to get these wins now while he's finding his rhythm. And hey, he might find his rhythm tonight. He's that great, but there's uncertainty there. If you're Dallas, you got to jump on it. Let's see if they can get their bigs involved. Gafford and Lively have done nothing. They've had no impact in the series so far. Tonight, I think is different for them. And then T-Wolves Suns. Let's see what the Suns have at them. Are you gonna make a stand, or is Minnesota just completely physically gonna dominate you mentally, physically, every which way? I want to see what the Suns are made of tonight. Do they put up resistance? Do they have have it in them to get a win? Does it mean enough for them to fight hard enough against this team to get a win?
I know it sounds like a hot take, Legs, but I feel like this is a legacy weekend for Kevin Durant and the Suns group, because if you just get swept, I mean, look, I'm not saying, look, his legacy, there's a floor to it, right? He's obviously an all-time great. He's accomplished a lot. But man, this Wolves team is good. They're connected. They play tough. They have some pieces. Phoenix cannot get blown out a third game in a row in the playoffs and can't let it happen at home. That would be such a disappointment for all of those guys and for that team. So they have gut check time tonight, and that's the late game. You're right. 3 great games. By the way, Milwaukee, Indiana, 3:30 start time. If you're in California, that game starts at 2:30 today. What the hell is the NBA doing here?
Hey, listen, it's a triple header on ESPN.
Yeah.
And it's funny you just said that, because I didn't notice it until about an hour ago. Because I'm going to DC right after we get done. I'm going to DC. I'm going to be on with Scott Van Pelt tonight after this last game, man. Everybody check it out, man.
Tune in, man. Tune in.
I can't wait to be on with SVP. He was on vacation a little bit. He's doing the Masters. He's back in studio. So I'm back with SVP tonight. Right after that Suns Timberwolves game, I'll be the first person out there with Scott breaking these games down. I cannot wait to do it. Whew. I didn't realize it, man. Look at it the last couple of days. I'm like, wait, 5:30? That's a 5:30 tip, East Coast time. So yeah, that's a weird time. That's an adjustment for players. It's kind of an odd thing, but it's 3 games in a row on ESPN tonight, man. And they has the potential to be 3 incredible games, hopefully with really close finishes.
Can't wait for it. Then, of course, over the weekend, Cleveland at Orlando. We just talked about that one. What a weird turnaround, by the way. 36 hours, because that game is 1 o'clock on the East Coast. Oklahoma City at New Orleans. All right, that series is 2-0. I don't have a ton of faith in New Orleans, but you never know. Boston at Miami. Now, there you go. There's a game for the weekend, Leg. Boston at Miami. Can Miami do this again?
Boston, Miami's the one, man. And it's going to be – look, I said it yesterday. Look, I like using analogies. I'm using an analogy. I have 3 dogs. I'm a dog lover. All right. When dog comes into a new territory, what do? They mark it. They lift their leg and they mark their territory. The Boston Celtics need to go into Miami and do that in Game 3. Look, because I think this is going to be the most heavily dissected, scrutinized 64-win team ever, man. Night after night. Everybody's looking for why the Celtics aren't going to get it done. How they're going to come up short. Wow. They took too many threes this night. They couldn't guard this team this night. Like, that's every night with this team. You want to put some of that to bed? Go win this game. I'm not saying you blow them out, but just win it decisively.
Just win it. Win it.
10, 12. But even I feel like a nail biter is a win for the Heat. Like,
really,
you won 64 games, man. You got the best starting 5 by a mile. They don't have their best player. Go get a 10 to 12 point win where you're not stressed at the end. That's a statement game. That's what I think Boston, if they lose this game, Adam, tomorrow night, that's the 7-game series.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right about that one. And then, of course, the conclusion of the Denver and the Lakers. I don't know how compelling that one will be. I would almost be shocked at this point if Denver didn't win. If we go into the next game, you get till Sunday. These are the games we're going to be talking about, obviously, on Monday's show. But you get Minnesota and Phoenix game 4. So you get the, more of that series. Milwaukee at Pacers, more of that series. But then you get the next Knicks, 76ers, and the Clippers in Dallas. So again, all weekend, every night, there is at least one series game that is going to be absolutely compelling. And most nights there's 2 or 3 different ones. So it should be a really great game. We're having no shortage of things to talk about on Monday, Legs.
Real quick, Sunday, I just want to tell you this. To think about what's at stake on Sunday, what we could be looking at. Okay, so we could be looking at the Sixers fighting for their lives. You go down 3-1, you're not winning the series, I don't believe. So fighting for their lives in that one. That's all that's on the line at home in that game. Clippers, Mavericks, one of those teams fighting to not go down 3-1. I don't know who it's going to be, but those are 2 legitimate threats in the West. Like those are 2 of the best teams playing in the first round to challenge Denver. and you're going to avoid Denver until the conference finals. That's what's at stake on Sunday. One of those teams getting down 3-1 potentially, or even ending up and turning into an incredible best of three. Same thing with Bucks Pacers. Depending on what happens tonight, the Pacers win this game tonight, you got a chance to practically put them to bed on Sunday. That team, that's a big talking point. And then finally, if Phoenix wins tonight, what's at stake for them on Sunday to potentially get this thing even, or they lose tonight and Minnesota has a chance to go for the sweep. There is a lot on the line on Sunday.
Cue that outro music, Emma. Everybody, we appreciate you hanging with us all week. We've loved doing this show all week because these games have been fantastic, and I can't wait to be back doing the show. Usually Fridays, I'm tired. I'm ready for the weekend. The NBA's been so good, man. I keep wanting to talk about it. So we'll be back on Monday. Do us a favor, hit that like button. If you're watching, leave us a comment. It always helps. The more comments you get, to allow more people to find the show. So we always appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the basketball. We'll see you on Monday.
All city like the mayor.